One of my favorite things about being a deep sea biologist is having the chance to sail on board research vessels and float above this expansive, voluminous ocean that is really responsible for the habitability of our planet. So my parents are immigrants from Egypt, and they moved to California in 1969. I was born a few years later. We were not a family of tremendous means. There were opportunities that they could not pursue because we couldn't afford it. Science was a very big part of our household growing up. I remember my father being an agricultural biochemist in particular, was the guy who would come home with cut flowers in a new preservative that he came up with. Whereas my mom, who was working as an aerospace engineer, would come home with a mock missile. And so it's really neat to see these two immigrants upend some of the social conventions that were present here in the US. And yet my parents are pretty conservative, and I grew up torn between two worlds. And having a foot in both of those worlds was really challenging at times as a kid. One thing that continues to surprise me is how the events of my past kind of echo throughout today. I'm sometimes asked, well, are you a marine biologist or are you an engineer? I think that I'm a biologist who uses the tools of engineering to build the tools we need to answer the questions we want to answer. So I think today I'm quite comfortable having a foot in different worlds, and I think I kind of even relish it a bit. The work we do in this lab is really focused on understanding how matter and energy move around throughout our world's ocean. It takes energy to keep living organisms alive. Much of it on Earth comes from the sun, but not all of it. 80% of our ocean is deep sea, that is in more or less permanent darkness. Those organisms are really dependent on the fallout of organic matter from the surface ocean, as well as the microbes that help harness the chemical energy from the underwater volcanoes and gas seeps and turn it into organic matter. That in turn feeds the animals and supports the ecosystems we see in much of the deep sea. And moreover, deep sea volcanoes, they're like the ocean's multivitamin that are necessary to support the algae that grow in the upper surface ocean, that make half the oxygen in our atmosphere, that feed the fishes upon which humankind depends. There's no getting around the fact that our world is inextricably linked from the highest mountain peak to the deepest ocean trench. Can we develop new ways of allowing us to see into the ocean beyond the reaches of our own eyes? In this lab, we do a lot of tool development, from water samplers that can suck up fluid in the deep sea without electricity, to more sophisticated tools like underwater mass spectrometers that can measure the dissolved gases in seawater. I'm really proud of the work we do in this lab to build these tools and share them into the hands of people from high school kids to scholars in countries of lesser means. There are many extraordinary scholars here in the US and around the world who have so much to offer, but may not have the financial means to do so. So we're trying to build a community, inviting those folks into our world and into our work, and trying to help give them those opportunities, not just for my sake or their sake, but really for science sake. At the end of the day, having a diverse set of viewpoints leads to better science, full stop. My dad is very claustrophobic, and the thought of going in the Alvin submersible is terrifying to him. My mom is scared to death of the ocean, and so before she passed away, she would tease me like, of all the things you could choose to do. But I was able to take them both out onto boats, and I saw a little glimmer in my mom's eye when she saw the Alvin submersible, because she's like, oh, this is a beautiful machine. Really appealed to the engineer in her. And I could see my dad getting so excited by the biochemical analyses we set up in the labs. And it's a real joy to see them develop a bit of a love for what I've chosen to do.